It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, live from Beirut. Our top story tonight. Celebrating on the streets after more than 5 decades of dictatorship, the people, Syria's survivors, and the end of Assad's regime.
Well, we saw scenes like this back in 2011 and the Arab Spring. Here we are in 2024, and I suppose in many ways this is the Syrian Arab Spring finally coming to conclusion.
Shining a light into the darkest corners of Syria's shameful secrets, the prisons where more than 15,000 people were believed to have been killed. The country's civil war forced millions from their homes, and tonight the UK, like other European countries, says it is pausing Syrian asylum claims.
Also on Sky News at 10 tonight. Ill will towards corporate America, the suspect arrested and alleged manifesto found after the shooting of a healthcare executive.
We come to collect the stuff from Hassan. There must be like an interchange.
The final moments of a teenage girl stabbed, a court heard, after a row over a teddy bear. And we'll be taking a first look at tomorrow's front pages in the press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight.
Good evening. The people of Syria are enjoying a second night of freedom tonight after the overthrow of President Assad. As they celebrate, though, many are also bearing witness to evidence of his regime's savagery. They massed outside the country's most notorious prison on the outskirts of Damascus today, as pictures from inside showed cells filled with the clothing of those once crammed into them. Well, let's just take a look. President Assad's downfall follows more than a decade of civil war, triggered in 2011 by his regime's brutal response to protests in the Arab Spring. Estimates of the total number of people killed range from 300,000 to more than 500,000, though a conclusive figure may never be known. 22 million fled their homes. The beginning of the end came quickly. Rebel fighters emerging from their stronghold in Idlib took Aleppo on the 30th of November, then Hama and Homs within days, before converging on Damascus this weekend. Tonight, we'll hear from our correspondents across Syria. Our international correspondent Alex Rossi is in Kamishli in the country's northeast, while our international affairs editor Dominic Waghorn and chief correspondent Stuart Ramsey are in Damascus. And it's Dominic we will hear from first, reporting from a capital city liberated from years of oppression.
After half a century of Assad rule, the sense of release here is deafening now he's gone. Ordinary Syrians joining rebels to celebrate in the capital. The tyrant is defeated, the people are in charge now. On the highway into Damascus, we passed all that's left of Assad's army that deserted him in droves. This is the third or fourth tank that we've passed on the road from the border. We're on the outskirts now of Damascus. They're literally just left in the road, along with uniform, boots, other bits of military paraphernalia just discarded, clearly by soldiers in a hurry to go wherever they were going. Some sign of fighting, spent shell casings all over the ground here. A jeep over there that's been shot up pretty badly. The military abandoned its uniform and melted away, discarding piles of fatigues on the side of the road. Above us, Israeli jets menace the skies. That didn't deter the crowds, out in force enjoying their newfound freedom and exploring Assad's secret, forbidden world. In the gardens of one of his many palaces, a mother summed up her feelings. He was living up so high, she said. We were living down here. Inside, they streamed through a building they never dreamt they'd enter, where the Assad family entertained. While they lived in luxury, thousands of oppressed Syrians languished in the horrors of his jails. We found one of his victims on the roof. He showed us the fingers he said had been cut off by his torturers.
They did this with pliers. There were people they used to hang with ropes and kill them, and there were people they used to put in a crushing machine.
Chilling pictures emerged today from that jail, Syria's most notorious. Thousands have disappeared into Sednaya prison, held in the most unhuman of conditions. Thousands are thought to have been killed there. At the palace, their nightmare over, people came to gawp, to photograph and to chant in celebration as the sun went down. Dusk is beginning to fall here. There's a curfew imminent, but they're still coming here in their droves to see what style the Assads lived in, the marble flooring, the intricate woodwork, the chandeliers. But what's also striking about this place is every window seems to be made of bulletproof glass, a sense of the paranoia of the Assad family, as well as the luxury they liked to live in. Our country is heaven, they sing, and hope Syria's hellish ordeal is now truly over. Dominic Waghorn, Sky News, Damascus.
Well, one of the symbols of the overthrow of President Assad has been the three-starred Syrian flag. Tonight, it featured again on the streets of the capital. Well, let's go to our next report. Our chief correspondent Stuart Ramsey reports from Damascus, where he saw the celebrations continue in the capital tonight.
It was chaotic. It was always going to be. A new batch of fighters arriving to join the ongoing celebrations in central Damascus. They brought more guns and more ammo. Cars streamed around the roundabout as fighters mingled with civilians in a noisy, banging, wildly happy party to mark the end of the regime of Bashar al-Assad. On abandoned and destroyed tanks and military vehicles, they waved flags and shouted revolutionary slogans. They believe it's a turning point for the country.
Despite the gunfire, are you happy?
Finally, all our dreams are going to come true. Our simplest needs we weren't able to have, like electricity and water, now will be available for all. These simple things, thank God, we're going to be able to have them. This is what's making us happiest.
Many had doubted that this day would come. It's certainly been a long wait.
Well, we saw scenes like this back in 2011 and the Arab Spring. Here we are in 2024, and I suppose in many ways this is the Syrian Arab Spring finally coming to conclusion. Now, it's still early days, but these celebrations from experience can go on for days. Gunfire, the ground everywhere is awash with bullet shells. It's a big party celebration here. We've seen it before, and it'll go on a long time. Allahu Akbar!
There is concern about what the future will hold, of course, what a new government will look like, the influence of Islamic groups. But even hardened fighters are insisting it will be a country for all.
Do you envisage yourself, a revolutionary, becoming part of a government of a new Syria? Will you play a part in this?
Yeah, new Syria will treat all people wisdom, brother. Wisdom, behavior, culture. Anyone is a Christian in his home, in his store. No one tell him, go out of Syria. Syria for all, brother. Syria for all. The Nusayri Alawi, Bashar Assad and his father, he treated with us so bad. But we really didn't do that. We treat with all people as a good behavior.
The celebrations will eventually come to an end, of course, and that's when things will get more complicated. For now, though, the party goes on.
Well, Stuart joins us live now from Damascus. And Stuart, I mean, it really was a stunning takeover that caught the world and the region by surprise. And it's also now, with all the hope and optimism, a dangerous crossroads for Syria.
I think it is a dangerous crossroads because it was already extremely divided country and it remains divided now, though of course there is a massive celebration taking place here. There's a great feeling of optimism, particularly amongst young people I've been talking to, who are saying, right, this is at the closing of one era, moving into another, and this is going to be a new country of which everyone's involved. Of course, the the leaders of the revolution, the rebels, are saying that it will be inclusive and that they're offering deals to conscripts to say that they'd be pardoned, all sorts of things like that, saying there's going to be a transition of power and it's going to be peaceful. But there is great concerns about whether that will happen and what sort of government will be formed afterwards. And as I was saying, the country is already hugely divided, all the way across it and from the north to the south, and trying to pull all those factions together, and who is going to be the person that pulls those various factions and groupings together, we don't know. And of course, almost all of them are extremely well armed. And so I think in the coming days there's going to be continuing celebrations and parties, but there's question over exactly what happens in the future. And you only have to see the people crossing into Lebanon today, well, throughout since the revolution happened, knowing that many people are not waiting around to see what it's like.
Stuart, thank you so much for all of your reporting there from Damascus tonight. The attacks inside Syria have not ended despite the fall of President Assad. Tonight, in the northeast of the country, close to the Turkish border, we saw explosions at a military base formerly under the regime's control. We also saw another group of its prisoners being released from jail. Well, our international correspondent Alex Rossi reports from the city of Kamishli on the change of power.
They thought they were lost to the world. These prisoners were captured by the regime, but are now being released by Kurdish forces. As they emerged to taste freedom, they looked dazed but happy. The men all claim they are innocent, but were accused of crimes by Assad security forces. Shuja al-Beker tells me the cruelty of the regime knew no bounds.
They are despicable. Look at how they oppress people. They kill parents and orphan their children. Each prison has 2,000 people, and they have executed many people too.
The old order here has unravelled with dizzying speed. It was a day they did not think would come. But when it did, the jubilation across Syrian Kurdistan was unstoppable. The streets of towns and cities filled with the sound of gunfire as pictures of the fallen leader were trampled and destroyed. And statues erected to the Assad dynasty have been pulled down everywhere in a riot of celebration. People posing to savour this moment. But it's not just the regime, their allies are also fleeing. This Russian base at the airport in Kamishli is now empty. The flag flies low. And these pictures captured the moment that Russian medics left to jeers from the crowds.
The speed with which power has changed hands has taken everybody by surprise. And if you want an example, this is it, the regime base here. In a matter of hours, government forces took off their uniforms and fled. It's now been taken over by the Syrian Democratic Forces. Now, people here in Kamishli are celebrating. They are glad Assad has gone. But there's also a great deal of anxiety about what comes next.
Regional powers like Turkey will also try and shape what happens to this autonomous region. Ankara views armed Kurds close to its border as a threat. And at the market, people know the next few weeks will be crucial.
It is not only me who is anxious, the people of Syria in general are concerned, because their future is not clear. No one knows which direction the country is going.
Khalil, a tech student, is hopeful. Plans to move abroad to Europe have been abandoned following Assad's fall.
For me now, it's like a festival. I think it's like the Eid in the Arab society. We all waiting for this moment for more than 14 years.
For now, it is a time of general relief. There's apprehension about what might come, but the hope is that Syria can evolve into a peaceful country. Alex Rossi, Sky News, in Rojava.
Well, the independent reviewer of terrorism legislation in the UK has told Sky News the turmoil inside Syria has the potential to trigger a new wave of terror. Jonathan Hall KC said he was especially concerned about prisons in northeastern Syria, which are holding some of the most dangerous ISIS fighters. Well, our security and defence editor Deborah Haynes reports on the terror threat.
The dark march of Islamic State across swathes of Syria and Iraq a decade ago. A reign of terror finally terminated by an alliance of Kurdish and other local forces backed by Western powers. But the ideology never went away, and neither did many of the militants or their families. Locked up in camps and prisons in northeastern Syria, a precarious purgatory that could implode if a security vacuum follows the sudden collapse of the now former Syrian regime.
If the camps are not guarded properly, then you could see a situation within which the camps just sort of broke out and you know, the guards were overrun and all of that concentration of Islamic State firepower disperses around the region.
The British intelligence and security services are surely scrambling to try to understand what events in Syria mean for the terror threat there. I've spoken to Jonathan Hall KC, the independent reviewer of terrorism legislation. He says he's worried about the potential for a resurgence of Islamic State, with all that could mean in terms of inspiring more British nationals to travel to Syria or to carry out acts of terror at home. Then there's the question of Syria's triumphant rebel leader. Abu Muhammad al-Jalani and his fighters were once aligned with al-Qaeda, but now say they're a unifying force. The UK still regards them as terrorists, a label that could be reviewed. But on a trip to the Gulf, the Prime Minister signalled that wouldn't happen quickly.
No decision is pending at all on this. It is far too early. At the moment, the focus has to be on talking to our allies, making sure that this is an opportunity for Syria, and therefore we have to work to make sure that it's a peaceful opportunity.
The United States and Israel are taking no chances, especially as the ousted regime stockpiled quantities of chemical weapons. Here, Israeli warplanes bomb an undisclosed target. Everyone all too aware, a return of Islamic State could be even more horrific than the first time. Deborah Haynes, Sky News.
Well, tonight, the Home Office in the UK has paused decisions on Syrian asylum claims as it waits to assess the unfolding situation in the country. Well, our political correspondent Liz Bates is at the Home Office. And Liz, what's the reason they're giving for this?
Well, look, I think the main reason is we've seen over the past few days the situation on the ground in Syria developing so quickly that I think here in Westminster, the UK government is really, their challenge is to try to keep up with that. I mean, we saw today an announcement from the Home Office. The Foreign Secretary was in the House of Commons. He wasn't even aware of it. That is how quickly things are moving. A very live question here is the status of Syrian asylum seekers in the UK. And we did hear something on the Home Secretary, from the Home Secretary, I should say, on that today. So let's hear what she had to say.
We know that the situation in Syria is moving extremely fast after the fall of the Assad regime. We have seen some people returning to Syria, but we also have a very fast-moving situation that we need to closely monitor. And that is why, like Germany, like France and like other countries, we have paused asylum decisions on cases from Syria while the Home Office reviews and monitors the current situation.
So you can hear there, that's not a final decision, that is a pause and a review. And I think you get the sense that even though there's urgency, there's a bit of caution around that as well. Another live issue, of course, is the rebel group HTS and how the UK government views that. And along with its allies, it is currently a proscribed organisation. That makes it difficult to have dialogue. That makes it difficult to use diplomatic efforts to shape events as they unfold in the Middle East. What we are getting a sense of tonight is that The UK government does not want to move unilaterally. It will constantly be speaking with allies. They will move together with the awareness that the situation on the ground in Syria is so volatile, it needs to be treated with caution and unity.
Liz, thank you so much. Well, we heard earlier in the programme from one man who says he was tortured in President Assad's most notorious prison. Syria was not the only one, though, to have held people under the most terrible of conditions. Our data and forensics correspondent Tom Cheshire has been looking at the legacy of Assad's jails and the prisoners now freed.
Syrians looking for their relatives, looking through every last scrap left on the floor for any trace of their loved ones. One of them sent us this video from inside Syria prison. For decades until the fall of Assad, only those disappeared by the regime saw these walls. So this is hope that loved ones may be found and desperation that they might not. But it is also vital documentation of an unbound and terrifying system of detention. The prison sits 20 miles north of Damascus. For years shrouded in mystery and bone-chilling rumour. But videos like this from the same person who filmed inside the cells are now uncovering that. The distinctive curve of the building helps us confirm the videos we've seen are from there. 260 miles north of Syria is Manbij. Here, people run down the street after being released. The disappeared reappearing, returning to life at a sprint. And so too in Hama. This is a countrywide effort to reach all the prisons and detention centres. So vast is the system. There are 17 military and civilian prisons throughout Syria, part of a detention network that comprises at least 111 different facilities, according to the United Nations. The Syrian Network for Human Rights, SNHR, has estimated that the Syrian government had arrested and released approximately 1.2 million Syrian citizens since 2011. SNHR also reported that at least 135,000 people, including women and children, are still arrested or have been forcibly disappeared. And they say that more than 15,000 people have been tortured to death in the same period. That's why so many have flocked to Syria prison, crowding its corridors, to find out whether those who are taken inside its walls are alive or dead. On Monday afternoon, the White Helmets, the rescue organisation, were using dogs to try and find further detainees. They are used to scouring disaster sites for survivors. Syria is just another. Tom Cheshire, Sky News.
Well, the rapid overthrow of Bashar al-Assad surprised the world, and Russia was no exception. The Kremlin spokesman admitted this today. He was speaking after it was confirmed Syria's ex-president has been granted asylum in Russia, and the flag of the Syrian opposition was unfurled over the country's embassy there. Well, our Moscow correspondent Ivor Bennett reports on the former leader's exile in Russia.
In Moscow, there was an extraordinary sight. The symbol of the very forces Russia's been trying to destroy in Syria, hoisted above its embassy. The flag's now flying less than a kilometre from the Kremlin. Also in Moscow, we're told, Bashar al-Assad, but no sign of him here.
I think because I have some...
There were other Syrians, though, like Farhad, who has some questions for the deposed leader if he sees him in the street.
Maybe asking him just why? Like, why? Why he killed all these people? Why he didn't left the country from the first day? Why should have see our beloved one are dying in front of us? For what? For a chair? To be president?
Russia's president spent the day honouring war heroes. There's no such glory from events in Syria, though. Vladimir Putin backed the losing side.
This will be humiliating for the Kremlin and potentially damaging too. After doing so much to keep Assad in power over the past decade, they've now lost a key strategic ally, which in turn could seriously harm Russia's regional influence. The mission has ultimately failed.
On state media, things are presented differently. Russia's not obliged to wage war for Syria, the anchor says. There's no mention of defeat here, nor that Russia was distracted by its war in Ukraine.
These are two absolutely, completely different issues. But when one country is involved in both issues, of course it all depends. There are military and economic issues, political tasks. Of course this is true. But to say that Russia abandoned Syria, that's not it.
But they may now have to abandon their military bases there. Reports of a deal to guarantee their future haven't been confirmed. This vital foothold may yet slip. As for Assad, he's been to Moscow before, so he'll know that life here is different to Damascus. For one, someone else is in charge. Ivor Bennett, Sky News, Moscow.
Well, over the course of the last 48 hours, we've seen extraordinary images coming out from Syria, images of jubilation and celebration from Damascus as people taste freedom for the first time in not just 14 years, but for more than 5 decades of the Assad family rule over that country. Images of devastation from inside the prisons as we discover and the world discovers Syria's dark secrets within the different corners of the country where people were forced to be disappeared and tortured. They've now, some of them have been able to come out into freedom. And images of those people who are able to now return to their country for the first time in over a decade. We will continue to broadcast these images, bring you these images and report from Syria over the course of the next coming days and weeks. But for now, Anna, back to you in the studio.
Yes, genuinely an extraordinary few days. Yalda, thank you. Now, police in the United States are questioning a suspect over the killing of the chief executive of one of the country's biggest health insurance firms. They say Luigi Mangione was found with a gun consistent with the shooting of Brian Thompson in New York last week, and a document which showed ill will towards corporate America. Well, he was spotted at a McDonald's in the city of Altoona in Pennsylvania, and our US correspondent James Matthews is there tonight. James.
Good evening, Anna. Yeah, it's 5 days since Brian Thompson was gunned down outside a New York hotel. Police believe that their manhunt and the mystery has come to an end with the arrest of an individual here, 300 miles away in Altoona, Pennsylvania, at a McDonald's. The arrest of a man by the name of Luigi Mangione.
This is 26-year-old Luigi Mangione, allegedly one of America's most wanted, now in custody. The manhunt ended in a McDonald's. The suspect was eating at this restaurant in Altoona, Pennsylvania, when an employee recognized him from public appeals and called police. When they made their arrest, they found a gun and a silencer that matched the weapon used to kill Brian Thompson, the chief executive of the insurance company United Healthcare, gunned down as he walked into a conference in New York.
Responding officers questioned the suspect, who was acting suspiciously and was carrying multiple fraudulent IDs as well as a U.S. passport. Upon further investigation, officers recovered a firearm on his person as well as a suppressor, both consistent with the weapon used in the murder.
The false IDs in Mangione's possession included a fake driver's license used by the man booking into a New York hostel before the murder. He also had clothing and a mask consistent with the suspect. Police say the weapon found on Mangione was a so-called ghost gun. It could have been made on a 3D printer. He had in his possession a 3-page handwritten document that they say spoke to his mindset and motivation. Mangione, an engineer, appears to have written an online review praising the manifesto of the so-called Unabomber. Ted Kaczynski murdered 3 people and injured 23 others by sending mail bombs. A review by Luigi Mangione praises him as a political revolutionary. Latterly, Mangione had lived in Hawaii. This was him in Baltimore in 2016, giving a speech at his high school graduation.
Many of the students characterized our class as inventive, in both imagination and initiative.
This is the suspect, pictured in a New York taxi following the shooting last Wednesday. Altoona, Pennsylvania is 300 miles from where Brian Thompson was shot.
We believe at this point, our investigation is leaning toward he was acting alone. So, like I stated earlier, we're still working through the investigation.
It was a most shocking assassination on the streets of New York. There has been a police pursuit of the killer nationwide. It is a manhunt and a mystery they believe is now at an end. There you go, the story of Luigi Mangione as it is this evening. By all accounts, it was a very busy scene here in McDonald's. Members of staff telling us about police descending on the restaurant. There is the main body of the restaurant itself. Behind the counter, there is an alcove of sorts, 2 or 3 tables. That's where Mangione was arrested by police officers. Much more, of course, to come in terms of his story and his motivations. Police, all they're saying on the record at the moment is that he bore ill will towards corporate America. He will learn what's next for him very shortly. He's due to be arraigned across town here in Altoona within the next half hour, Anna.
Yes, we'll keep an eye on that. James, updating us from Pennsylvania. Thank you. Now, the Premier League referee David Coote has been sacked following an investigation into his conduct. A video was leaked appearing to show the 42-year-old making foul-mouthed comments about the former Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp. The body responsible for refereeing games says he was in serious breach of his contract and his position was untenable. Rupert Murdoch has failed in a bid to change his family trust to consolidate control of his media empire in the hands of his son Lachlan. That is according to the New York Times, citing a sealed court document in Nevada. It's said to state that the father and son had acted in bad faith in trying to amend the trust, which would currently divide his empire equally among his 4 eldest children. The rapper Jay-Z has described a lawsuit alleging that he raped a 13-year-old girl, along with Sean Diddy Combs, at a party in 2000 as heinous and a blackmail attempt. The legal papers claim they drugged and raped the girl at a party following the MTV Video Music Awards. The Old Bailey has heard that a teenager fatally stabbed a 15-year-old girl in a fit of white-hot anger after a dispute over a teddy bear. Eliane Andam was killed on her way to school in Croydon in South London last year. Our correspondent Ashna Hurinag has this report.
The then 17-year-old Hassan Sentamu has been tracked down by police. 90 minutes earlier, Eliane Andam was stabbed. He gives officers a false name.
You got any idea, any right? I'm looking for someone who's just stabbed someone. Need to see your name. Say something else, Scott. Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back now. Oh, right. Listen. Right. Oh, no, wait. Listen, you're on camera. Listen, you're on camera. Right now. I didn't even do nothing, bro.
The day before Eliane died, she and her friends, one of whom was Sentamu's recent ex-girlfriend, met up with him. The girls wanted an apology for the way he had treated her. They teased him and threw water at him, but Sentamu doesn't react. The prosecution say one of the girls joked tomorrow he would kill them all. The following day before school, the same group had agreed Sentamu and his ex-girlfriend would return each other's belongings, including her teddy bear. Seeing him empty-handed, Eliane recorded this.
We come to collect the stuff from Hassan. It was meant to be like an interchange. She gets her stuff, he gets his stuff. He didn't even bring the stuff.
Seconds later, feeling aggrieved, Eliane is seen taking back the bag her friend had given Sentamu, and he chases her. Wearing a mask and both cotton and latex gloves, the prosecution say he pulls out a kitchen knife. Eliane was cornered and stabbed repeatedly in a fit of white-hot anger. Sentamu is autistic. The prosecution say that as part of his defence, he will say that his autism impaired his self-control. But the prosecution say the defendant has a short fuse, and on the day of the killing, he'd reached the end of it. Sentamu, now 18 years old, admits manslaughter, but denies Eliane's murder. The trial continues. Ashna Harinag, Sky News.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview tonight, joined by the political editors of The Sun and The Guardian, Harry Cole and Pippa Crerar. Welcome to both of you. Great to see you. And certainly among the stories we'll be discussing, this take on the overthrow of President Assad from the front page of the Daily Mail. Its headline for tomorrow's paper, Syria chaos is a chronic threat to our security, a warning there from the ex-MI6 boss. Lots more to come on that and plenty more when we're back.
This conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
Well, this is Sky News. In just a moment, the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. First, our top stories this evening. The people of Syria enjoying a second night of freedom tonight after the overthrow of President Assad. But despite the jubilation, the country's future still hangs in the balance. The suspect in the killing of an American healthcare executive will appear in court shortly. Luigi Mangione was arrested in a McDonald's restaurant in Pennsylvania. The Old Bailey has heard that a teenager fatally stabbed a 15-year-old girl in a fit of white-hot anger after a dispute over a teddy bear. Eliane Andam was killed on her way to school in Croydon in South London last year. Hello. Hello there, watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. Time then to see what's making the headlines with the political editors of The Sun and The Guardian, Harry Cole and Pippa Crerar. Welcome to both of you, with us from now until just before midnight. So to the front pages then, let us start with the Financial Times reporting that Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, the rebel faction which toppled the Assad regime, is attempting to assert its control over Syria, prompting fears of violence with its rivals. The Mirror also leads on Assad's downfall following the lightning rebel offensive in Syria. The headline there, the rat of Damascus. Chronic threat to our security. The warning on the front of the Daily Mail over potential ISIS prisoners being released from Syria. The Guardian reports on investigations into hidden underground cells believed to have held prisoners of the Assad regime. The Times also has that story. Its headline, Search for Captives Who Escaped Assad's Noose. And the Telegraph leads with the Home Office decision to temporarily pause the asylum applications of people attempting to come to the UK from Syria. And reporting on the trial for the murder of 15-year-old Eliane Andam, the Metro has the shocking headline, Stabbed to Death for a Teddy Bear. Well, the Express has this story on the impact of increases to national insurance on children's hospices. And the Sun leads on the sacking of Premier League referee David Coote. And according to NASA's boffins, the Daily Star's favourite planet Uranus holds the key to the secrets of the universe. Don't forget, scan the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme. You can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you listen to our guests. Let's head to Harry and Pippa. What an extraordinary weekend in Syria.
Yeah.
And the revelations now of torture in the cells, deep in the cells, they're still trying to access, which is on the front page of the Financial Times, which ruminates about how you forge a nation after an autocracy like this and whether it is indeed possible to do so.
Yeah, and that's, of course, the issue, the concern which is occupying or preoccupying Western governments right across the world and also other governments in the Middle East, that in a region which is obviously still haunted by the chaos that followed the regime change in Libya and going further back to Iraq. How is this going to play out? And experts in Syrian politics seem to be divided between those who say that Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, this group which obviously formerly was allied with al-Qaeda and cut that affiliation with them in 2016, so not that long ago, between those that argue that they will be reformist and law-abiding, that they want to see the smooth transition of power, and that they recognise the need that to have sort of credibility on the international stage and the financial support that comes with that, they need to at least show that they're respecting the political processes. And those who point to the many other examples we've had in recent years in the Middle East of one set of chaos following another, and point to Afghanistan with the Taliban, of course, initially promised and delivered in the short term stability, but is now doing things like banning women from becoming midwives and going back to the worst sort of theocracy, the worst part of theocracy that existed previously under Taliban rule in Afghanistan. So very, very sort of divided opinion on how this will work out.
Yes, and a divided nation in terms of factions who came together with the common goal of getting rid of Bashar al-Assad after, 24, 23 years for him and more for his father, back to more than 50 decades, and how you then bring the factions together or it disintegrates effectively with the Kurds in the northeast, for example, who are themselves fighting Turkey.
Absolutely. I mean, you see the reaction from the British government today, from the Americans, from the West, which basically let's just see how this goes. It's not quite better the devil you knew, but they are clearly making attempts to sort of seem like, as Pippa said, seem moderate. There was an amazing piece today I read where they've sort of almost got their sort of first sort of week's plans, which is more better mobile phone signal, new bus routes, and not quite potholes, but it does sound like the sort of not the sort of thing you'd expect a former leader of Al Qaeda to be saying. So they are obviously going to try. They are meeting with Assad's aides, as the FT report today. They're sitting down with ministers who are still sitting in their ministries, essentially trying to run the country. But the public sector of Syria is obviously ground to a total halt. these early days are incredibly important in the fact that keeping some semblance of stability. But the joy, I think, will probably turn to anger on the streets of Syria when you see the images coming out of the regime prisons on the front pages of lots of the papers tomorrow. The nooses, the 5 underground layers of prison cells that they're still trying tonight to be able to access because they don't have the codes or security. They can see on CCTV prisoners trapped beneath the surface. We're reporting tomorrow that there was a body press discovered, something people literally put in a press. And when that sort of starts to permeate around the country, I think that sort of initial jubilation. Yes, Assad is gone, the bad guy is gone, but the anger, is there. And then also you've got the secondary problem, the massive problem of who are these people that are sweeping in? Have they just put a blazer and a tie on and pretending to be moderates, or are they still the baddies that we once feared they were?
Yes, and how Islamic will they end up being?
Exactly.
Sunni, Shia, what does it mean also
for... the minorities, the Christian minorities in the country?
The minorities, indeed so.
And will they be able to, they're making lots of nice noises now, giving conscripts an amnesty, but how long will that actually last?
Yeah, indeed so. And what it means regionally as well. Clearly, Israel has been bombing. The US has been bombing. One wonders if eventually Turkey will be bombing. They seem to have supported this group that's come through. And in the meantime, what it means for the people who've been held, the ISIS people, both in the Kurdish area, you think of Shamima Begum, but other people that the West is more concerned about, certainly in terms of what might happen to them if they're also released, like people are releasing the prisoners.
So those parts of northern Syria, Kurdish-led parts of northern Syria, there's about 12,000 ISIS members being held in jails across the region. About 2,000 of them are foreign fighters held in prisons. A number of those will be British origin. And of course the question, they were locked up for the terror campaign that they unleashed across Syria and threatened across other parts of the world as well. And it's going to be, so far, as I suggested, so far the Kurdish led north remains, the Kurds remain in control, but they're under pressure of the Turkish border as well. I think crucial to it will be what the US decides to do. The US staged airstrikes against some of the sort of military installations that were left behind over the weekend. There's 900 chemical weapons. The Israelis did as well. There's 900 US troops in the area. It would be crucial for stabilisation. And Trump, of course, has threatened to withdraw. So let's see what he does as well when he comes to power.
Let's just see the Daily Telegraph quickly as well. Asylum cases on hold amid terror fear. It's also your byline on the front of the Sun as well. Halt on Syria asylum in the UK. You could make a presumption it's because some of these people will want to go home again. But what is the real reason why it's on hold?
There's two reasons that they're doing this tonight. One, obviously, as we've been discussing, there's the issue of you have some terribly bad people who now probably might get let out. We don't know that's necessarily sure, but that risk has suddenly gone up dramatically, that some of the people that were being, almost a sort of marriage of convenience with Assad, in the fact that he was part of the sort of post-ISIS world of actually locking up some pretty terrible people who want to do us all harms. Then you've also got the issue, you've got 6,000 people here, you've got 6,000 Syrians in the UK already who are claiming asylum because they want to come to this country. 99% of Syrians, 3,000 of them, who claimed asylum last year were approved because they said they can't go back. They can't go back to Syria because they'll be persecuted by Assad. Now, Assad is gone. What happens to these people that are here? Suddenly these cases start to look a little bit flimsy if their entire reason that they can't go back to Syria is because they'll be persecuted. So a bit of a headache for the Home Secretary, one, on the sort of #1 job of the Home Secretary, which is to protect the country from terrorists and bad people, and number two, the political issue of the fact that she's under huge pressure to get asylum numbers down, and actually this throws the whole thing into doubt.
I mean, the fallout is extraordinary from this, isn't it? It's so wide-ranging, has to be said. Lots more still to come in the next part of our programme. The Chancellor attempting to maintain ties with the European Union. How did she get on with that? Back in just a moment.
I'm David Blevins, and I'm Sky's senior Ireland correspondent.
It takes 60 minutes to cross the Irish Sea. It took the British monarchy a century.
I've spent 30 years reporting the journey from conflict to peace.
The political parties of Northern Ireland have reached agreement.
If there's anyone who might know how to fix Northern Ireland's devolved government, it's the American architect.
Changes in circumstance require changes in approach.
The end of the political stalemate, the start of a new chapter for Northern Ireland.
I confirmed that I am willing to take up the office of First Minister. My election to the post of First Minister demonstrates the change that's happening on this island.
Catholics and Protestants on different sides, now facing the same threat.
If we both contract COVID-19 and end up in hospital, religion's nothing.
People here are adept at finding hope amid adversity. That's the spirit of a place that punches way above its weight.
We help you understand the world with us. A toxic blue-green algae now poisoning Lough Neagh. It's breaking your heart what has happened here.
It is.
This is a vital resource, a national treasure, now fighting for its very life. They are effectively surrounded by Northern Ireland, and that makes this the most unlikely of international frontiers.
If there's a hard border, I think it'll cripple the country.
Winter is coming. Welcome to Winterfell. It's an iconic location in this globally acclaimed drama. Ophelia was the most powerful hurricane this far east in the Atlantic on record.
Sky News, the full story first.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Well, welcome back. You are watching the press preview with me once again, Harry Cole and Pippa Crura. Moving away from Syria briefly, Rachel Reeves, where was she and why?
Rachel Reeves been in Brussels, which lots of sort of, it's the first time, I think, since Brexit, I think it's correct to say the first time since Brexit that she's gone to one of these sort of big Euro groups as a chancellor, which is a sort of overture, part of Keir Starmer's big reset. He wants to, when the sort of deal already comes up for review next year, sort of go a little bit further, get some sort of some concessions on, easing up some of the checks on goods and things at the borders. To the sort of Brexiteers of the world, just your eyes will start to swivel as you hear him say, what's on the table in return for that. He still hasn't really denied that he's looking at some sort of free movement accord for the under-30s, perhaps for students. The Europeans are very desperate to get their younger people into this country because lots of their people want to come here more than we want to go there. So she was there, she was sort of doing this sort of delicate line, and this sort of government line that they've got at the moment, which is quite a hard one to sort of tightrope to walk, in that they're, you've obviously got Donald Trump coming in America, basically trying to ease Britain back into the American orbit, away from Europe, seeing Brexit as he's a big supporter of Brexit, seeing it as an opportunity to sort of re-establish the Atlantic alliance. And then you've obviously got Keir Starmer, a natural gut instinct Europhile, who desperately would like to go the other way, I suspect. But in the middle of this, you've got the threat of tariffs, you've got China, you've got the trade wars, And Reeves was desperately trying to do a sort of balancing act, which I think ministers will find it able to do until crunch time, when they actually have to decide who you're going to sign with. Are you going to start reopening trade talks with Donald Trump? He's not a patient man. If he wants to, if he wants that to happen,
he
will say
tariffs,
it very vocally. Or are we going to lash ourselves to Europe, which seems to basically be, going down the Swanee?
But is our
biggest trade partner for now. But Germany's great as flatlining. France is basically about to be taken over by the far right. Italy is basically the only stable bit of Europe. When Italy is the most stable bit of Europe, you have to think, God, we're well out of this, right?
There's more than just 3 countries in Europe. It is our biggest trading partner by far. We're not going to get an FTA with the States. We're not.
Depends what we're given.
Harry, you've been saying we're going to get an FTA. If we're going to accept
since 2016 when Trump came in,
hormone-injected beef and chlorinated. It's the reason why British consumers thus far have rejected. British governments have rejected thus far.
BBC have poisoned the debate for decades.
The Conservative government has failed to sign an a free trade agreement with the US because they knew that British consumers would not accept agricultural.
Fake news about the
they
NHS.
knew that Britain would not accept agricultural products from the States.
If you miss Brexit. Anyway, very quickly, I'm going to jump ahead, if you don't mind, to mince pies.
Well, here we go.
I saw the drop,
Prices
it's gone
are
up
rising.
40%, but I didn't know why. So why?
Well, I'm going to totally actually wing this story, having read it about 8 seconds ago. Apparently, the price of sultanas are up because of bad sultana harvest. If only we had a free trade agreement with the United States, we could probably get cheaper grapes and we could dry them ourselves or something like that.
Alternatively, we could get them from Italy and Southern Europe probably for half the price, given it's just down the road.
So the price of a premium mince pie has jumped from £1 to £3.50. I mean, but basically everything's more expensive.
Oh, you know what? Don't buy your mince pies is my answer. Make them yourself.
Yeah, but you still have to get sultanas to make the mince pies. It doesn't honestly.
Cheaper than buying them from
My mum does very good ones with orange peel in it. I think she might be watching.
And then I put some
early request
chopped
for the
apple and a bit of
the orange peel
liqueur.
mince pies.
Next week, Harry's mum can bring in some mince pies from his mum for us to try on the paper review.
Thank you both very much indeed. See you for more in the 11. Harry and Pippa will be back. The latest on Syria to come.
Play Sky News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7.
Now that you're up to date, we can go into a bit more detail.
Things can change incredibly quickly.
Taken by surprise.
Have you ever known a moment like this in British politics before? Yes. Cheers. We'll start with breaking news.
Let's get the latest on the ground.
So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better.